So, what is it with anti-trans advocates and not getting sex? Hope you all liked my comedic intro. Today we're going to be talking about sex. It's a topic that most people don't really think about because it's often overshadowed by gender, which people talk about more for good reason, because gender is more about how we express ourselves, where sex has to do with physical characteristics like chromosomes, sexual characteristics, gametes, and so on. All pretty simple and boring stuff, but it's weird because of how simple sex is that there's so much confusion about it. One common misconception about the world of sex and gender is that sex is a binary. Not to even speak of men and women, we have males and females, and that's it. You can even hear this from progressives when they'll tell you, oh, sex and gender are different, of course. Gender is the one that's the spectrum, and sex is the one where there's only two categories, which are male and female. You'll often hear the disagreement framed as progressives thinking sex and gender are different and conservatives thinking that it's all the same. But I'm going to take a hard disagree with conservatives' view of sex. Today we're going to be looking at Ben Shapiro's new show, Debunked, which is usually pay-per-view, but has a free episode on transgender ideology, where he talks about gender and biological sex, and while the line between these in his eyes is undefined and grayer than the line drawn in the scientific field, we'll be focusing on his arguments for biological sex and the sex binary he tries to prop up. It turns out Ben Shapiro and a lot of his anti-LGBT palerinos don't really understand sex, which shouldn't be surprising. So let's listen to the cool kids philosopher's attempt to paint sex as a binary distribution.
Males and females reproduce with one another in the human species. We've known this for quite a while. The simple reality is that the human species is sexually dimorphic. Sex is binary. We come in two brands, male and female. Typically, those who have the XY chromosomes are male, those who have XX chromosomes are female.
Alright, so what's wrong about this? When Ben says that there are two brands of sex, male and female, he's sorta right and sorta not right. In modern biology, sex characteristics are put into two categories, male and female. The problem with Ben's logic is that there are a lot of these traits. Usually the traits used are chromosomes, gametes, primary sex characteristics, and secondary sex characteristics. Most people have all male characteristics or all female characteristics. But there are exceptions. Some people appear male in every way, but have XX chromosomes. Some people are born and can produce both sperm and egg. Some people are born with sort of ambiguous genitalia. And some people have female primary sexual characteristics and male secondary ones. Or vice versa, chicks with dicks, and so on. These people are called intersex because they're somewhere in the middle of male and female. If you view sex purely as a binary, how would you categorize someone with a penis, XX chromosomes, and enlarged breasts? Are they male because they have a penis? Are they female because they have XX chromosomes? The existence of these people breaks the binary. If you view sex as a male to female spectrum, these people fall in line perfectly. Ben's claim at the beginning that males and females reproduce with one another in the human species doesn't include all the intersex people that are perfectly capable of getting pregnant, or impregnating, or both. Well, you might be saying, these people are exceptions to the rule of male and female. A very small group of people must not be enough to break the binary that most people fall into. Intersex people are less than 2% of the population. But the problem is, by definition, a binary is a way of categorizing things which only fall into two categories, which we don't see in biological sex. You could call sex characteristics a binary. Pieces in a chess set are either black or white. That's a binary. And in binary code, the numbers are either 1 or 0. Binary doesn't mean that you have 1s and 0s and occasionally a 2 or a 3 or some weird rat mixed up in there. It means that you have two things, like an actual binary code. Even if you had a million zeros, a million ones, and then 1, 2, it would break the binary system, and we would have to evaluate the numbers in this sequence differently. That doesn't mean it's automatically a spectrum, it's just not a binary. Binary means two things and nothing else, basically. It's obvious that 1s and 0s are not the kind of thing we have with people and biological sex. Okay, there we go. So Ben goes on to mention that some people actually do differ from the binary. citing
There are
that.
certainly people who have anomalous genetic conditions, like Klinefelter syndrome, in which a person has two X chromosomes and a Y chromosome, and in whom breast development looks female while male genitalia are present. Overall, disorders of sexual development affect 1 in every 5,000 births. Now, the presence of abnormal development does not mean that sex is a spectrum. To suggest otherwise, it would be the same thing as saying that because one child every few thousand is born with 3 toes, this means that the number of toes in the human being is a spectrum. Or that a person with 3 toes might actually be a sloth human, a 3-toed sloth human.
So, while sex is a spectrum, Ben is right. Variation from the binary doesn't necessarily mean that sex is a spectrum, but it does mean that sex is not a binary, as he's suggesting. He goes on to compare sex to toes, saying that if there were some people born with 3 toes, it would be dumb to call it a spectrum. And I don't even disagree. So I'll use toes as an example too. I couldn't find a study on this, but most people are born with 10 toes, or no toes. You know, people without legs. And this would work as a binary if these were the only 2 groups of people. But the problem is, these 3-toed people come into the mix and break the binary system. Just like intersex people do with the male-female binary Ben is trying to legitimize. With these 3-toed sloth humans, or whatever you want to call them, we would need to expand our view on how we categorize the number of toes people have. Just like how in the past few decades, we've learned a lot more about biological sex, and adjusted our scientific view of it. Well, some of us have. Some people, like Ben, are stuck viewing the world like they did in 5th grade biology class. And his views on gender aren't any better. But those are talked about all the time. I wanted to take a more scientific approach in this video with biological sex. Maybe if more of Debunked is released for free, I'll make more videos debunking them. Because I can't imagine Ben Shapiro will say anything I agree with. But thanks for watching, everybody. I know I haven't made a video in a bit, but I think I might get back into the swing of things with more videos like these. So if you don't like what you see, you can unsubscribe. That's perfectly fine. And if you do like what you see, I mean, there will be more videos on the way. Hopefully, maybe. Hopefully I don't get bored. Anyway, party people, I'll see you all in the next one.
Remember you was conflicted, bro? Misusing your influence? Sometimes I did the same. Abusing my power full of resentment. Resentment that turned into a deep depression. Found myself screaming in the hotel room.